Hi, hello, and welcome to the Rainbow Coaching Collective podcast. We are a collective of the LGBTQI plus transformative coaches who are set on empowering members of the community and its allies one conversation at a time. It's been a while since our last episode, as we've all had quite a bit going on the life front, which we will probably explore as we go through. So today we've decided what would be appropriate is to explore the theme of resilience on this week's episode. So I'm joined by my lovely Max and lovely Holly. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
So anyone who listened to episode 3 isn't expecting episode 4 to be on the history of the LGBT plus community. We've had a lot of life experiences go on, and so we've had quite a big break. So I think our last podcast was back probably in February. Um, but we've all had something going on, and we've had to take a very natural break. Um, so I'm just going to check in, guys. How are you today?
Hi.
You go first, Max. I'm gonna have a little
Um,
think.
yeah. So it's Friday today when this is being recorded. And yeah, it's been quite a busy, challenging week for me. So this seems like an apt topic all about resilience. And it has made me reflect on my own journey and relationship with resilience over over the years. Um, so yeah, excited to delve into that today. I think it's a really important topic, not only for us individually and those individuals that are listening, but also on that sort of macro level as a community at the moment with everything that's going on, um, both in the West, but also other parts of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay, and it's so lovely to be back with you guys. I am a
Yeah.
little bit tired, so I will maybe zonk out here and there, but hopefully I'll be present for most of it. So I'll do my apologies up front. How are you,
Yeah.
Holly?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be back doing the podcast. It feels right. It feels great to be back. I think we are going to have some really great in-depth conversation because even in a few weeks, everything has changed within the community. And so, yeah, really interested to kind of get back on track and get talking about really um, important topics, and also thinking about how we can support the community and our listeners as well.
So I'm kind of wondering how you, or what your interpretation of resilience. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
What springs to mind for me with resilience, and I don't know particularly why, but I feel like for me, it's like elastic. The sort of the metaphor of it being like a piece of elastic. When I think of resilience, I think of that because sometimes you're really, really stretched on the elastic, but you're still together. You're still keeping it together. Sometimes the elastic is a bit more relaxed, and so you're sort of flowing through life a bit easier. And sometimes the elastic does break. And I've experienced that in my life as well, where I have, for want of a better word, broken because I have put too much strain on the elastic and my own life. And that's the way I sort of see resilience. And I feel like my whole pathway to becoming a coach has been about resilience. Like when I sort of contemplated it a bit this week, it's part of the reason why I'm here today being a coach, because I've had to find a way of being resilient, and I've had, great support around me in terms of treatment on the NHS or family and friends. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. And I've done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of reading and sort of understanding. I've had counseling. And so I think that for me has really been about resilience in finding a way to to still be here and do what I love, and find a way to always, I'm going to say, the word I want to say is always be better, but I don't mean that in a perfectionist way. I mean to sort of live better. So I always feel like resilience is about learning, if that made any sense at all.
Yeah. I love that. So much of that resonated with me. And it's funny that you used the metaphor of the elastic bands there, because that's something I'm using with a client at the moment. And the way that we described it was that a lot of us in life can see ourselves in a bubble. And when life gets too much, that bubble can pop and then we fall apart. But actually to reframe that as an elastic band that can be really useful, right? Because an elastic band can be stretched and it can be stretched to quite a large extent before it does snap.
Yeah.
And we've all been in situations here where it has unfortunately snapped, but we've come out stronger on the other side. But almost seeing it as an elastic band means that, we've got real clarity around the fact that it does have that elasticity. It can be stretched. And then therefore we know our limits at given points. We know when the band is loose. We know when it's tightening up. We know when it's stretched. We know when it's at maximum capacity. To me, that's what resilience is about. It's those checkpoints of knowing where we are at any given point. And our ability to bounce back at the checkpoints that we reached to loosen that band. So we're heavily stretched to know what we need to do to come back. It's similar to another way it's described is with the Yerkes-Dodson. It's called the stress curve, the bell curve of stress. But we can almost reach a point of optimum performance. We need some stress in our lives to keep us challenged and interested. We don't want no stress whatsoever in our lives. But if we go over that curve, that's how we go into burnout, panic attacks, those sorts of things. So if we can again check in where we are at any given point in that curve, we can come back up to the top. So it's a similar sort of analogy. But this idea of bouncing back really comes through to me when I'm thinking about resilience, having those checkpoints in place to enable us to do that. And I love that idea of bettering ourselves as well, becoming the best version of ourselves. That really rings true with all of this as well. How about you, Rach?
Yeah, I know. I kind of prompted you guys to go first because I do like your metaphorics. Because my mind was like, yeah, bounce back. I have to say, with recent events, I think I was the elastic band, and I definitely broke. And I think it's something that you said, Max, about almost like learning and reading the signs, learning you come back and stronger. And I think, okay, how, throughout my life, I've been resilient because I've bounced back from certain things. And I've kind of questioned my resilience and gone, well, this time it nearly finished me off. So what point, it's made me kind of really reflect and gone, right. For people listening, I ended up with a stomach ulcer and ended up in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and I'm still recovering. So it's kind of that point of going, I was burnt out, on that treadmill, thinking I've got it, I'm coping, I'm managing, and then life going, no, you're not. And then it made me stop. I didn't have a choice in that. I just stopped. And then with the reflection, and like you said, Holly, coming back at the better version and learning from it, I'm like, I really need to learn from this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that sort of just came to me was, and that's how we do bounce back, is number one, awareness. So awareness of those things and having an inquisitive mind, of how can this not happen again? How can I look after myself? And being aware of our body, our mind, and our soul connection. And then also giving ourselves the tools to be able to do that. So we're kind of arming ourselves with the tools that will enable us to live that better life, so that we are happy and we're not getting to the point of burnout. which is where coaching is really, really helpful. But there are also lots of other things as well. And it has to be a holistic approach as well, and an overall look at well-being. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Mm.
That idea of like the toolbox. And we
Yes.
add things to the toolbox. I remember when my toolbox was empty and I checked in there to see if there's anything in there and there's nothing, just dust. When I was off the back of coming out, I experienced really bad anxiety because I was basically upheaving my whole life. And that led to eventually panic disorder. But I didn't have anything in my armor, in my toolkit to help support me during that journey. And went through different therapists, different counselors, got the support that I needed. But one person I worked with in particular said something that was really, really powerful. And I want to share it for the listeners because I still use it for myself today. But it's all to do with that toolbox. I'll try and get it right. But she said to me, as I was recovering from anxiety, panic disorder, I was coming out the other end. She said, you can never truly go back to where you were because you know too much now.
Mm.
You can never truly go back to where you were because you know too much now. And that was really comforting and really, really powerful because I knew and I still know that I can get myself anxious, I can get myself panicked, I can get myself stressed, I can get myself to a point of burnout. That's within me still to do those things. But I know that if I go back to those states, I now have tools in my toolbox to pull me out quicker, which I never had in the past.
Mm.
And I think it's really comforting to know that as long as we're moving through life and adding those tools to the toolbox, we're learning, as Holly said, we can never truly go back to where we were because we don't have a time machine. There's something quite empowering about that for me
Mm.
to know that.
Mm.
It's almost like that quote of a man never steps in the same river twice because it's never
Mm,
the same river and he's never the same man.
Ooh, yeah.
mm, yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot.
I think for this podcast, we'll just change it and put person.
Yes, change it to person. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm wondering, you guys, you brought up there, Max, about coming out being like almost like that part of your journey.
Mm,
As being part of the LGBTQI plus community, what impact do you think that has on our resilience?
mm, yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
You
My
want to go on?
first, I've just sort of my first instinct, I don't really know what I'm going to say here, but my first instinct is just to say a huge impact, because I think no matter when you come out, you have to get through being a teenager, which is already difficult. When you're discovering who you are, exploring who you are, depending on when you come out. I didn't come out till I was 21, I think. So that means up to 21, I was not being myself. That's such a long time to be in the world, essentially hiding through fear a whole aspect of myself because I couldn't face it. I was humiliated by it. I was shamed by it. So I lived with that for 21 years. And that is just to get through that, I think that's resilience in itself. And yes, I had to sort of undo a lot of that and explore a lot of that in my 20s and 30s. But yeah, I think that's my first instinct is to say that naturally, if you are part of the community, you are resilient and you need to know that in the depth of your being, no matter how much you don't feel like that today, you feel weak, we feel that we are as a community we're being attacked. The fact that I think we can all say that we are resilient, even if you don't particularly feel strong today, you are resilient. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, Holly.
So powerful. I think it's the glue that binds us all together, isn't it? As a community, is that resilience, is that experience of masking and muting ourselves for many years of our life, in our early years, those years where we're meant to be able to experiment and show up authentically. We're having to close off and mask and mute, and we we face a lot of setbacks, and we're told that we don't belong, and that's a lot of blows to take at a young age. Um, so emotional resilience we've had to develop to survive. I don't think you can be part of a community unless you're very, very fortunate enough to have grown up in a space, that is completely accepting. And those pockets are growing, some areas. But unless you've sort of had that, um, you will have faced, I think, more resilience battles than most. Um, and like you said, Holly, I think that's what binds us, and I think that's something that's really important to remember, because although it was a challenge for us, it's also part of our strength, something that we have in our armory, that we are able to be emotionally resilient. And sometimes we just want to collapse. And I think with what's going on at the moment, I'm not trans, but I feel extremely deflated, and some days really challenging. And my heart just goes out for members of the community, the genderqueer, non-binary, trans, who are having to wake up with the world treating them like monsters because, because of ignorance, pretty much, political posturing, fake news, fake media, or reporting, but also just as negative narrative. But as a community, there is strength, and I think that's really important. We have our own group, our circle that we run to help support members of the community. There are those circles, those spaces. So you can't find the strength in yourself, finding that within the community, because it is there and it's available despite what's going on. And we've fought these battles before in the past for many, many, many years, many, many generations, different battles, different times for different reasons. And this is another. And the only way through is resilience and coming together as a community.
Yeah, I think that's sorry, I'm not sure if I echoed there. Yeah, I'm the same, Max. My heart goes out to trans people, because that sense of belonging just feels like it's been ripped open. I'm not trans, but just to be, you're wanting to be part. No, you're not wanting to be part. You're wanting to be who you are. You're wanting to be authentic, and to be told, no, you can't. So yeah, I think that it is a time really to kind of almost bring that community resilience together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I want to also say is, if you don't feel like you can be resilient, reach out to those. We can be resilient for you. Because that was one of the things I was sort of thinking about. Yes, I've sort of very strongly just said, we are resilient as the community. But one of the things that I just made a note to myself was, yes, we are resilient, but we've also, it's also self-preservation and protection. And if you are just doing that and it is just protection, that can also be a dangerous place, because you don't even know how to sort of look after yourself. So then do reach that dangerous point of burnout, of being ill. And I think we can all say we've experienced that in one way, shape, or form, because we didn't know how to look after ourselves. So there is that fine line of, yes, we are very resilient, but we also have to learn to look after ourselves as well, and know that we deserve that as
Yeah.
well. Know that we deserve that, and that everyone deserves that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think activism can take a lot out of you as a human being. Even if you're not directly impacted, um, it can take a lot out of you, right? It can be draining when you're just met up against a brick wall. And so taking that time out to recharge, not feel guilty about that, you're still fighting the fight by recharging, because you're getting the energy. You're letting someone else take over while you recharge and then have enough energy to come back in and carry on the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also about being honest with those that you can be honest with, so that, sometimes when we're caught up in those emotions, when we're caught up in burnout, we don't always see it for
Mm.
where we are in that matter. So actually having some really good networks or places you can go to, which helps to say, hang on a minute, you know, I'm here to support you, and shed some light on something so that you can do something about it. Because having a toolbox is great.
Mm.
You know you need the tools. And if you are kind of in burnt out or feeling completely lost, feeling like not belonging, then sometimes that toolbox kind of gets buried underneath all that stuff. So actually having a good network that kind of goes, hang on a minute, are you looking after yourself?
Mm.
Which may mean stopping and breathing. It might mean picking up a phone. It might mean going for a walk. It can mean all different kinds of things. But it's having that awareness to know sometimes when to reach out.
Mm, yeah. And that can be really hard, can't it? If you don't know you're in it, because sometimes it's just the way that you live. Like, you don't know any different. When I had a bit of a breakdown when I was 32, I want to say. I didn't know I was ill. I was living with depression and anxiety, but was sort of so deep in it. I just thought that was the way I lived, if
Mm.
that makes sense. Didn't know any different. So I didn't know I needed help, because, yeah, I didn't know any different. I know that I struggled, and I wondered why I was so different to other people, but I didn't know I was that ill really until I did break. And then it was from there that I've kind of come, built back up again. But sometimes you don't know you are in it. And I think that's why it is so important to provide sort of safe spaces and have these discussions as well, because hopefully it will make someone go, am I okay?
Yeah.
And it's okay to say no. I didn't know it was okay to say no. I just thought you had to keep going and go to work every day and do a stressful job and be it, like, just keep going. And to actually be able to have someone say to you, are you okay? And mean it.
Mm.
Oh, you're right. Like, actually be like, are you okay?
Mm.
And know that it's all right to say no. I'm not actually, I think is really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because whatever we tell ourselves, we believe it. So if we're going around going, "Yeah, I'm fine," we kind of go,
Mm.
"Yeah, I'm fine."
Mm. Yeah. It's where that comes from, right? It's like Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me, but the first thing I look for in you. And we're all walking around, most of us masked up all the time, waiting to see somebody else model to us how we really want to behave, which is to say, actually, I'm having a really shit time at the moment. I'm feeling really rough, and this is going on, and I want that to be taken into consideration. But most of us just say, no, I'm fine, good. So yeah, having a community of people that are genuinely checking in, the relationship that we have with each other, that we don't have all this polish and facade. We know it's very safe to ask that question. Are you sure you're okay? you're right, because we know it's coming from that compassionate place. Having those people in your life, I think, is really important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Mm.
So far, we've gone on a bit of a journey of our own personal experiences and the community. Just want to check in how you're feeling.
Yeah, good. Thank you for asking, Rachel. One other thing I just wanted to share, actually, because it's something that I read this week, that made me feel good. It made me feel sort of proud of where I was, and okay about where I was, because it was actually, I'm reading, nearly finished actually, Matthew Perry's autobiography.
Oh, I've heard that's great. I haven't read it yet.
So great. I am a massive Friends fan. I'm still watching it on a regular basis. And yeah, Chandler was one of my favorite characters. And I knew that he struggled with addiction and obviously devastatingly passed away. And it's even sadder to read the book when you know that, because he kind of, is coming from a place of when he was sober, I think. But one of the things that he said is towards the end, he said that he looked in the mirror and was proud of his scars. And he was talking metaphorically and physically. So he had major operations that weren't necessarily in the press. So they're huge things. So he had sort of scars on his stomach, and he'd been really, really ill, close to death. And he's looking in the mirror and looking at his scars, and he was also talking about everything that he'd been through. And I just really was lying in bed reading it, and I was like, I really like that, to be proud of your scars, and to know that that means that you've lived, and you're still here, and that is something to be proud of. And he was saying, how do you know if you've lived if you don't have scars to prove it? And I was like, yeah,
Mm.
it's just something I wanted to share because it was something that really resonated with me. And I was just like, it made me feel stronger and prouder to be able to talk, to be able to say, yeah, I'm still here. And yeah, just that really just made me feel stronger reading that, I think. Scars and
Amazing.
all.
Yeah. Reminds me of that quote as well. You've already survived the toughest day of your life. You know, we've all been through that toughest day and we got through it. Um, that can, yeah, that can be really helpful. I guess it would be useful to, yeah, share some practical tips that are good for, listeners to help lean into their resilience before we wrap up. What sort of things can help them? Um, One thing that came up for me there was the sort of mindset piece. I think it's useful to have a community to check in and stuff, but we can also check in with ourselves. What's the narrative that we're giving ourselves most of the time? Is it this negative narrative? You know, you're never going to be able to do this. You're never going to come back from this. You're always going to be like this. Just checking in with what that voice is, because you've got to think at some point, who's that voice talking to? It's talking to somebody who's receiving it. So there's always two people, as it were. There's the observer or the listener, and then there's the inner critic, the voice. So the more that we can see that for what it is, the inner critic, the more that we can step back and observe that we don't need to listen to all of this stuff. We can start to change the narrative. So if you were speaking to someone else, no, actually, I don't want to hear that today. Today's going to be a rubbish day because of X, Y, and Z. Actually, leaning more into that growth mindset of today is a new day. Today I have a choice and choose to feel how I wish today. Just because I had a rubbish day yesterday doesn't mean I'm going to have a rubbish week. So being again conscious of our language can be really helpful. I think in terms of like um, reframing. And the other one that I made a note of, just because I wanted to share this because this has been really instrumental for me, is just thinking about energy conservation, the foundations that binds everything else together. Some weeks I do this better than others. I'll be vulnerable about that. But what I've learned for myself is having, for example, a morning practice, something, it could be 5, 10 minutes, but having a space in the morning where it's just for you, time just for you to recharge. That could be meditation, breath work, yoga, stretching, whatever it is, but it's 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour of just your time to do what you need to do to nourish yourself. And if you're doing that every day, you're telling yourself that you're going to show up for yourself in some shape, way, or form every day. And you're building that resilience muscle because you've got that foundation. So bringing that stuff into the day, even throughout the day, those periods of rest, even if it's 5 minutes, 2 minutes, all makes a huge difference, I think.
I think for me, my biggest takeaway is from my recent experience. I think a lot of friends were very surprised just how ill I was, but not surprised given that my lifestyle was quite hectic. And I, as a coach, I will sometimes mentor in my clients, and I say, your body will speak to you first. You need to listen to your body. And I think for me, my big takeaway is, but you need to stop in order to listen to it. Because I think I was definitely having things pop up and then just going, yeah, it's fine. I can deal with it because I'm still managing my everyday life kind of thing. I can still do it rather than going, well, hang on a minute. This is what my body's telling me. So it's actually to take some time out, and whether it is like incorporate it with what you said, Max, even just 5 minutes in the morning to go, right, how am I actually feeling? Maybe what are my intentions for today? How do I show up for myself today? And having almost that kind of that mindset of putting yourself first. So I think that's my recent experience. That's what I'm trying to take away. It's a bit frustrating at times.
Yeah. I think two of the things that I've sort of just made note of is to take away the fact that it's not weak to seek support. And it's important to seek support. No one is alone. And even if that is listening to a podcast to, feel a connection with someone, or as I said, we obviously run the sharing circle. People can come along to that and just be heard if you don't feel like you can do that in your immediate community. But yeah, I think support is important to note, and that it's okay to reach out, and you don't have to have all the answers. But what can be important is to air the questions, say the questions out loud. And it often helps just speaking through things. So I think that's important to note. And the second thing was a more practical thing that's worked for me, is the processing of emotions. And that can be done in obviously all different kinds of ways. But one of the things that has worked for me is just journaling, write it out, and get it out of your head. Because so often I sort of realized that things were trapped in my head, and it was going round and round and round and driving me crazy. And it's whatever that might look, that might be something, people might get it out through exercise or music or art. But also, for me, what really helps is to actually get the thoughts out, is journal, just write it out. And something some people may know about the morning pages, and I don't necessarily do it every day, and I don't necessarily do it in the morning, but what I've taken from it is the practice of writing, and how helpful that is. And what is helpful is to take from the morning pages is, if anyone's interested, is that it's 3 sides of A4, so it can be done in a contained amount of time. It takes about 20 minutes. It's not an essay. You don't have to go on forever, but it's just something that's like, right, I'm starting here. When I finish here, it's out. And that's just something that's been helpful for me in the past.
So it sounds like we've got a few things there for our listeners of actually having a morning routine, stopping and taking some time to actually hear what's going on for yourselves and actually writing things down, journaling, getting it out, reaching out to the community, and have that sense of being heard.
Yeah.
Whether you're being heard by yourself or by someone else.
Mm.
So we've probably got a minute or two left. Is there anyone got anything burning they want to say before we bring it to a close?
I don't think I have.
No, I don't think so either. I would just reiterate, we are a community or a community for a reason because we are there, for each other and do reach out to us or not us, other members of the community if you're feeling isolated and alone. Because you don't have to do this alone if you are struggling.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. And I have to say, it's just lovely to just be here back with you guys, just being ourselves, having a conversation. None of this is prepared as always. We just rock up, decide what the theme is. And actually, we don't have a theme for our next one yet. Does anyone have an idea what we might do for next time? Has anyone got anything burning? We could ask the audience to always get in touch and
Yeah.
give us
Yeah,
a theme. And if nobody does, we could come up with our own theme on the day. What do you think?
yeah, sounds good.
Sounds
Yeah,
like a plan.
we'll leave it to the audience and see if they come up with a theme. And if
Yeah, that'd be
we'll,
great.
we'll put
Yeah,
one in for ourselves.
yeah, just drop us an email.
Yeah. So thank you guys for getting stuck into this topic and sharing your stories. And for our listeners, if any of this resonates with you and what we shared today, or you have any ideas on things you'd like us to talk about in the future, please visit our website www.rainbowcoachingcollective.com or get in touch with us via email on info@rainbowcoachingcollective.com. We'd love to hear from you. And like we said, if you've got an idea of what we could do for our next theme, please let us know. So until next time, take care, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.